on, everybody? Welcome back to the Major Keyz podcast. This is your host, Zach Wilson, talking to keyboard players about music and life and everything in between. Today, we have a special guest, Mr. Caleb Sean McCampbell. What's going on, bro?
What's going on?
Hey, man, just doing the thing. How goes life?
Man, life is going. Life is going. I'm grateful, man. I got a 7-month-old baby boy.
Woo.
So that's a whole another journey that I'm on.
Yeah.
But good things, man. I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
Man, absolutely. So yeah, man, let's start from the top. How did you get started playing keys?
So I got started. So I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, and
Okay.
I grew up kind of in a musical family, honestly. So I have it's just music is just really rich in my family. So my dad got all of us started, me and my siblings, like just kind of in music in general. Like he would line me and my siblings up. There's 5 of us. He would line us up next to each other, and he would be like, here's your part." He would have us sing in harmony when we were
Oh,
little
wow.
kids. He'd be like, "You sing this, no sing." So, but my honestly, my oldest brother um is an incredible piano player. Actually, his name is Charles McCampbell,
Okay.
and incredible piano player. And so, anyways, I kind of watched him when I was little, and that was really kind of being surrounded, just around music in the house. But him, and then I have an uncle, my mom's brother. His name is Joseph Jobert, and he's a crazy like classical. He's kind of got this conglomerate of classical, jazz, and gospel in his bag, and
Yeah.
but he was the one that inspired all of us, honestly.
Okay.
So that I would say he was the one that really kind of, as far as piano, my dad's not really a piano player, but
Okay.
that was how I got started, man. I was about 3 or 4 when I really started to really sit down and like, start being consistent and tapping. I would just copy my brother, man, everything I possibly could figure out.
That's crazy. So you were so would you say you were self-taught, or did you end up doing lessons? Like how did
I did, yes. So I did. So every school that I went to had some form of lessons or some form of like artistic program. So the elementary school I went to, I started taking like formal piano class. It was a piano class, right? So
Okay.
I was in the piano class. I excelled in the class. Teacher loved me, and so it worked well. I started elementary school. I want to say that class started in like second grade. But prior to that, I was learning, just stuff just by ear, just from
Okay.
my brother. I would just take stuff that he would play. I would just look, I would just stay on the piano and just like kind of some like in the beginning, kind of self-taught, but also, or I'd say more so ear.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
and then every school I went to from there, from middle school, I went to a middle school that had an arts program, and I took piano lessons there. And then in high school, I went to high school in Dallas, Booker T, which is also the same high school that Sean Martin went to,
Okay,
and
got you.
Robert Seawright and Roy
Mhm.
Hargrove. A lot of artists have come out of that school. So, of course, they old, man. They way older than me. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Yeah,
kidding. Those are my
yeah.
dudes. Those are my
Well,
dudes. But yeah, that's kind of the path for me as far as like studying is
yeah,
concerned.
yeah. Yeah, Dallas, I've heard, well, I just know that Dallas has a really great like music scene, especially like if you're growing up in Dallas, like that's like a good place to be. Was it like hard for you learning past the stuff that you like kind of learned by ear? Like, was it a challenge? Like, was it difficult, or did it come like kind of easy to you?
You said learning past.
I mean, like learning past, like when you were learning by ear, like of course you were picking it up easy early on, but like when you started really like progressing, was it hard? And were you like classically trained too?
So I guess to provide more clarity on that. So I mean, yeah, I started off by ear, and even to this day, my ear is still my strength. I
Yeah.
can read music. Um, but yeah, the reality is that my ear was my was so strong that when I got into piano class, and specifically I'll say in my middle school, I would just fool all my teachers because I would look at the music and then like I would have it memorized.
Oh,
Like
so
I
you were like Nick Cannon and Drumline. You would just
low
memorize
key,
what you.
man. Low key, low key. I mean, I kind like I would sit down and I would just take the music home. I would read it, but I would read it slow and I then I would remember. But my brain was the way I'm wired. I just start memorizing it automatically. It wasn't like I was like kind of I'm gonna try to get this so I can. It just that was how my brain worked, and so
Mhm.
I found reading to be more challenging. I had to really commit to that. And to be honest, even still today, like my sight reading is not incredible,
Yeah,
but I can read. You know,
I got
um, I'm more of a lead sheet and chord chart with the melody all
you. Yeah,
day.
give me a little iReal Pro. Just give me a little.
Give me that
I,
iReal Pro.
bro, I'm not mad at it because like I was classically trained. I still if you put a piece of like Chopin or like Mozart, like heavy classical, even though like I'd have to like break it down and really like have to, but like just putting it in front of me. Oh yeah, play this. Like as far as like something that I'm like I've never I haven't been there. I thought I wanted to be a classical pianist, but I'm like nah, I,
Yeah,
So
and I love classical music. I mean, I started like I had classical training when I was younger, and
oh
so
same
that
yeah
helped me out a lot with my piano technique.
right.
Um, that helped me out a lot, and so, but I eventually veered more into jazz
Mm-hmm.
um, as I got older, and I would say more so when I got to high school because at arts our jazz program was like a heavy jazz program, and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I kind of did both. You know?
I feel you. Do you know if there was like any specific moment that made you go, I want to do music full time? Like this is who I want to be. Or was there a point like, you know what, music is just on the side, like I want to do something else? Like was that ever like a thing, like your career path or something like that?
You know what? To be honest with you, I think I didn't even think of the words career. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Like for real, until I probably hit high school. I think maybe middle school, but I would say probably high school because I was always just like this is just it was second nature to me. It wasn't like I didn't think of it as this is a skill that I have developed and that I've been developing that could one day make me money. I didn't think about that when I was little. I was just like, I love music, and everybody in my family plays music. Everybody in my family sings and plays instruments. I love doing it. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Right.
yeah. So my perspective, I would say, I think probably when I would say I was in high school, and I think because when you're in high school, that kind of usually, at least oftentimes, is like okay, what's next? Am I going to college? Am I going to go,
Right.
like what? Because you got to figure it out. It's like life is,
Mm-hmm.
I got to move, and depending on your upbringing, you know what I'm saying, what you're allowed. Some people's parents kick them out when they're 18. Some people's parents, you know what I'm saying. So it's like, and that wasn't the case with me, but it was very much so like, hey, you need to be on, you need to be focused on your future. So I would say in high school, I was like, when it concerning music and my thoughts about where I would end up going with it, I was like, man, you know what? This is like I love like I said, grew up singing, playing instruments. I play a little drums, but I was like, man, I really could go somewhere with this. Like I need to like I never really thought about doing anything else
Okay,
for a
got you. Yeah.
never thought about it. And I've never done anything else to make money. I've never
Yeah.
made money doing
Not,
anything else other
not
than
doing
music,
music.
unless you.
That's a yeah, that's a blessing. I definitely yeah. That was no, I get it because that was definitely my goal. Like after it was probably like middle school, high school. I was like I want to play the keys for real. I didn't now of course like I had a skewed view of it. I thought it was like, okay, well, I learned how to play. I go to Berkeley, I get on somebody's tour, and that's life. Like it's
Of
not
course.
of course it's not exactly like that. Or like I'll see musicians, I'm like, oh man, they play for this artist, they're good. But I'm like, but of course, like when I got to college, I learned it doesn't work exactly, like that. But no,
Right.
I definitely get it. I don't know like the defining moment for real.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely but have you ever heard of Brian Culbertson? Do you know him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
he had this live from the inside DVD, and it was like an in studio. He did the in studio live thing before Snarky Puppy got a hold to it. He did like that
Mm-hmm.
one. He did that one album, but he had
Mm-hmm.
the solo on the song that he like reimagined called "So Good," and it like opened my eyes to like what could really be done on the piano. Because at that point, I was playing classical music. I I I knew like some easy listening sort of jazz, but I didn't know like any of the like the fusion stuff. I didn't know
Hmm.
any of that, and so like I knew that, and like I knew R&B, and I knew playing in church, but like watching that, that was like, yo, there's so much that you can do on piano than just being like right, like where you need to be, and that like
Hmm.
you know kind of changed my perspective.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
who are you listening? What shifted you, or who are you listening to in high school that kind of shifted the gear for you, like the possibilities in music?
Um, I would say so for me, it was even before high school. So growing up in Dallas, like I said, man, there was so many. I grew up around a lot of these guys, like I said, Robert C. Wright and Sean Martin. There's a bass player here. Well, I say here. I don't live in Dallas right now, but
Right.
Braylon Lacey. There was these guys that um I just kind of grew up watching that really impacted my mind for music in general. But I would say as far as piano players, I'm assuming that's kind of what you
I
mean
mean, just
more.
in general. I'm just like
General, okay.
musically in general, like whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. There were some key people that really just impacted my playing. One for sure would be Robert C. Rice, but like that's like the big homie, man. I just grew up in like the way his mind for music and the way I would watch him take sometimes not even necessarily the greatest players in the city in a moment. And like he would take what we might consider the B team or whatever and take some of those guys in some moments. And like you look up and it'd be like, they go from just like, oh, that's cool to like, oh my God, like what
Yeah.
happened? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? I just would see him do that in real time. So he's one person. My uncle Bernard Wright, he passed away about a year ago.
Oh, that's your uncle. That was your uncle.
Bernard is my uncle. He's so we're not blood related. People are like
Oh,
uncle,
okay.
uncle.
Yeah.
We may
Yeah.
as well be though, man, because like
Right.
I grew up with him like in the house. Like he lived with me
Oh,
and my
wow.
family when I was younger. And so like I mean I would watch him making tracks and I would watch
I was
him
like, yo,
like
you got to tell me about because I went to Dallas to see Empire Central. I went to one of the recordings, and
oh
so
no.
Bernard Wright was there. That was the
Mhm.
first time I'd heard of him, and someone was like, "Oh, that's Bernard Wright. Like that's the cat. That's the man." You know what I'm saying? And so like I hadn't really heard of him, but then like I did my research. I was like, "Oh man, he's like in Dallas. Like he's like the dude." So
Yeah,
yeah, so tell me a little bit about that, because like man, when I met he was so dope when I met him. He was super cool. That
yeah.
he was just the highest energy. But yeah, he was really amazing.
He man, he really shaped he really I would say he's a person who, especially not like just music in general, but especially as a pianist and a keyboard player. I'll say more so as a keyboard player. He really helped to mold my perspective on sounds,
Yeah.
on synthesizers, and even just something as simple as like playing melodic, singable type of things on synthesizers. The pitch bend. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people understand the real function of the pitch bend or like what it can do. They kind of like stay in one place with it, or they may do things that may be kind of more cliche. But like I literally, because of him, I would sit down with the pitch bend. I'd be like, yo, like how much, I'm going up this far, I'm going up that, like the spacing down both directions. How, I really spent a lot of time with those things because the way that he played was so expressive. And
Mm-hmm.
when I would go and hear him play, man, it was like, and anybody who's heard, Uncle Nard play, man, it was like, it would be like, it's like he had a way of taking the stars and the moon and like,
Uh-huh.
and he just pulled this gravitational thing into the room
Yeah.
when he plays, and he could have a little Casio for all we could.
Yeah.
He wouldn't need much, but it
Right.
would his choices. He was so intentional and he was so patient and he had chops too. A lot of people didn't always get to see that. He could go there. He really
Yeah, yeah.
could.
But he stayed. Like that is what I noticed when he played. He did it wasn't the version that made the album, but like on the Snarky Puppet thing, I was like, man, he's really leaving room for it to breathe. Like, like we like certain types of solos as keyboard players, like we like the all around the place, whatever. But I was
Mhm.
like, oh man, I was like, it's because like that song has got that, it's like right there. But I was like, man, you're really like leaving it. space, melodic, make you think about it for a second. I'm like that was really it was really cool to see that and experience him that time. Yeah, bro.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely. I could spend the whole interview talking about him, man, because he really. I was if I had to pick one person, it's hard because again, my mom's brother, my uncle Joseph, he's from the virtuosic perspective, is
Yeah,
scary. He sounds
yeah,
like he has three hands when he's playing.
it's crazy.
Because that type of player. So like he would be like probably for sure. But if I had to pick one person, it would be Nar. But Oscar Peterson was
Uh-huh.
my guy that I like.
Yeah.
I would sit and rewind. This is before the generation now they got it made where they got
Oh yeah,
YouTube.
we can go on YouTube slow, just hey, half speed. Yeah,
Yeah, I was rewinding. You probably remember that. I mean, I'm not sure how old are you?
I'm 25. I'll
You're
be
25.
26. Well, by the time this comes out, I'll be 26. I'll be
Okay.
26 June 29th. Yeah.
Oh, cool, cool. Well, happy early birthday, man.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, so you're kind of somewhere. I mean, we're about 10 years or so apart, but still, I mean, you probably have had enough time to be able to say, okay, maybe when you were little, that wasn't necessarily as accessible, but
Yeah.
now, kind of probably in your 20s, like that thing is more available. When I was young, I couldn't do that. So, like I said, listen to Oscar Peterson,
Mhm.
Herbie, the guys that the pioneers, Chick, all of them. I mean, I would say I was leaned more into Oscar Peterson the most.
Yeah.
Um, but and then as I grew older, Kenny Kirkland.
Yeah. We're
Uh,
gonna get to the top three and the top three, but yeah, yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm saying. There's all those, but yeah, I would say Bernard, and then when I was in high school, I was an Oscar Peterson freak. Like I would just
Really.
study everything, trying to get all his licks that I possibly could.
Yeah. Because when I was in high school, that's when I discovered Snarky Puppy and Robert Glasper and y'all. So like, and then like when I went
Yeah.
to college, my teacher was like, he was like, "Who do you like?" And I was like, "Corey Henry, Robert Glasper." And he's like, "All right, well, you got to learn about Oscar Peterson." I hadn't heard of Oscar Peterson before I got to high school. I wasn't really like going into high school. I didn't know a lot of like straight ahead jazz, that sort of thing. I knew a lot of the modern stuff because that was what was coming out. And like I
Mhm.
didn't grow up in a musical family per se. Like I grew up in a family like my dad exposed me to a lot of different types of music. But
Mhm.
but yeah, so like when I went to college, my professor was like, "All right, well, you like them, you got to go back, you got to learn Oscar Peterson, and you got to learn Bill Evans and all that sort of stuff." So
Yeah.
did you go to college for music too, or did you go high school and straight into the industry?
So I went to a college. I went to a junior college in Dallas
Mhm.
for a few years, and I went to this college. Yeah, like I said, community college. You know what I'm saying? But I don't regret anything, and I don't wish anything was different because I did like to just be honest. Like I auditioned for, I did, because they would come to our schools and go and scout, and Booker T was one of the schools that they would look for people because they knew talent always came out of there.
Yeah,
And like I did the whole thing. I auditioned for Berkeley and New School and all that. And like, Berkeley gave me a scholarship that I didn't feel was suitable. So I was like, cool, like, hey, I know
mhm.
I can play and I know I'm gonna be great. I don't care what y'all give
Gotcha.
me, whether y'all give me a good scholarship or not, I'm gonna push. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying?
They're like,
So
hey, I'll be all right with or without Berkeley, basically.
yeah, that was kind of my perspective on it. But like the school I went to, I studied with a guy there who really impacted me a lot. His name is Arlington Jones,
Okay.
and he at the school that I went to, like he really opened me up a lot more. Just as I was exploring the piano,
Uh-huh.
he's more of a true pianist as opposed to more like synthesizers. Although he does play keys and keyboards and stuff like that too, but
Right.
he's really like a pianist. And so he opened me up to a lot of things. I started diving into fourths and fifths a lot more, like kind of some of those approaches and like even just like my solo piano
Mhm.
approach really helped me out with my solo piano approach. So by the time I got to college, I mean, I had a lot of experience and I could play really well, um, but yeah, there was so much more to just like learn and to mold. So yeah, it was a junior college for a few years, and then like yeah, but I did jump straight into the industry straight out
Yeah.
of high school. As far as like I just when I was I graduated, and then like I turned 18 that summer, like right after I
Mhm.
graduated. And then I hopped on the scene. I was going out, I was playing, and to Split and all those guys, I
Yeah.
was, especially my brother, his name is Charles. So I was Charles's little brother. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
okay,
So
got you.
it was like, they was like, oh, this little joker can kind of play, man. So like I
Yeah,
came out, and then they was like, okay, I went from being Charles's little brother to, okay, that's Caleb, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? I had to
yeah,
build that respect, but like it was because of the community that I grew up with and because of what was poured into me. And you know, like I said, even in college, like I said, those few years that I spent at the junior college, that really helped, you know,
got you. So you
my
started
plan.
like just gigging around town, or like were you like in the studio? Like what sort of vibe? Because like I'm gonna touch on some of the stuff that I know that you've done, but like there's probably some stuff that I don't know that you've done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, yeah, it was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of both. I mean, because when I was little, even before high school, I was always, um, I wasn't necessarily super committed to writing, but I was always doing, like I would always be creating stuff. You know, back in the day, like we had all those keyboards that have sequencers. I mean, and like a lot of them have over the years,
Mhm.
but like so I would sit down. My dad had these old keyboards, like the Korg Wave Station. You probably never heard of that.
Mm.
Korg Wave Station. Uh, there was there was several different ones. There was the Korg. What's the one? I can't remember.
M1, maybe the M1.
Not not the M1. That is another one of those.
My
The like
piano teacher, I think he had the M1 and an O1W, and then for two of those, he had a duplicate of it, and I think he still plays one today. My piano.
really,
Yeah, he either has an
yeah.
M1 or an O1W. I don't know how great it is, but like he holds on to that. But yeah,
Hold on to that type of stuff. Yeah, and that doing those things, like I would sit down and I would like sequence. I would learn how to sequence and stuff. So I spent a lot of time, and that helped me with composing a lot because I would just sit and spend time doing that. So then so I had some experience again, like with producing and things like that. But honestly, I didn't think of like I never made the connection like you're a producer, you're a music. I was like I'm just making beats and I'm just making sounds and I'm putting to. I was like this is fun, excuse me, but I never thought about it from the perspective of like being a music producer. So out of high school, I started connecting with the Dallas music scene, and yeah, like studio sessions, gigs, out just whatever I could get my hands on, whatever I could involve myself in. I was doing it. You know what I'm saying?
and it was like pretty much a seamless transition from college to the scene because of like your relationships, or was it like kind of stagnant for a minute and it was like, oh, I don't know what I'm. Was there ever any doubt that it's like I may not be able to do this, or was it always kind of upward?
I would say I don't think there was ever a point that I was like I may not be able to. I may never be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there was the the challenges that I faced more, I think, was that I never felt like I fit in
Mm.
because like when it came to like the gospel scene, I didn't grow up heavy with gospel. I grew up in church, but
Okay.
I didn't grow up with like heavy gospel music. Like I mean, I did grow up with some gospel music, don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
like I just didn't grow up with like I didn't grow up in Kojic
Mhm.
or that's a very specific thing. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Most of those play like a Corey Henry or somebody like a Travis Sales, they grew up, whether it's Pentecostal, Holiness, Church of God in Christ. They
Mhm.
grew up in one of those three
Right,
usually.
right, right.
Those bring out some of the best players. Like there's a certain kind of finesse, like with organ and the way that they approach harmony
Yeah.
that is just unparalleled. And so my approach was different. Mine was more influenced by just like the music that I was listening to, but it was more from a jazz approach. So like when I was running the gospel players, I didn't really feel like I fit in because I felt like they was he a jazz player. And then kind of depending on the scene that I was in, but I was definitely embraced by the Dallas music community in terms of
Mhm.
but the older cast that would be like a lot of the older artists that were singers and things like that, I would go and play with them. And so even though, like I said, the Shawns and Sputs and some of those guys, they were around, and I didn't necessarily learn from them like teaching me things directly. I learned from them more from listening to
Mhm.
them and more like just being around them.
Mhm.
Because at that point, like I said, I had been studying in school, and then my older brother would show me a ton of things. Bernard, so I had an advantage with growing up around those people. But as far as the transition into the scene, I feel like it was very organic. It was very.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big struggle trying to connect, on the scene because I just showed up places and I'd go to the jam sessions and then somebody would hear me play and like, oh man, okay, cool to meet you. That kind of thing. Just build connections.
Right, right. I got you. So one of the most mainstream things that you've done, you played on Best Thing I Never Had by Beyonce. Can you tell us how that kind of came about? How'd you get into like what was that whole story?
Yeah, so I ended up being a producer on that song with my dude S1. Shout out to S1, man. Incredible music producer. And just an incredible person, man. So I that was when, like I said, being on the Dallas scene. S1 is actually from Waco, but he moved to Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
later in his life. And he when I was about 19, I think, is when I met him. I was playing at this birthday party. There's an artist from Dallas named Carmen Rogers. She's a
Okay.
really dope, shout out to Carmen. She's a really dope R&B soul artist, and so she was doing like a birthday party, and she had a few different artists to perform at her party. I think I remember. Yeah, it was a good time. Actually, funny. What's his name? Sean was playing. He played that show with us too that night. Me and him were both playing that night, and what ended up happening was one of the artists that night was a group called Strange Fruit Project,
Okay.
and that's S1's group. That was the group that he had started, him and his guys, called the Strange Fruit Project. So I guess he was just really impressed by me playing. See, like there's things that when you get into a certain mode
Yeah.
and when you're just committed to it, you just do what you got to do. So this particular show is funny. I didn't really know all of the music because like
Mm-hmm.
the time frame that it was kind of given to me,
Yeah.
like all the different artists we had to play for, it was like I didn't really have a lot of time to learn it. So
Yeah.
I like, and to be honest with you, none of the other guys really knew the music. To be
Oh
honest,
no. Oh
it was
man.
one of those things we all
You
got
gotta
caught.
have one. You gotta have one person who knows this stuff. You gotta at least have the bass player, the keyboard player who can like guide everyone through. Like
Yeah,
even if you like half know, if the bass player is like, oh, I got you. All right, cool, we good. But we can't all not know the stuff.
we can't all not know. Yeah, and I'm just the way I am. I'm like I can't not know it. I've just always been that way. Like I gotta know the music. That's the way I've always been. But what ended up happening was I spent some time the night before, and like I had just wrote some little charts for myself. You know what I'm saying? And then what I did was I brought my. This is funny again. Another one of those generational things. We used to have the Discman. A little CD
Okay.
player,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
so I brought my little Discman, and it had the CD with all the songs on it. And
Huh.
what I would do is, um, I would be. Don't ask me how I was doing this. I would be like, when we get toward the end of the first song, when we get toward the end of the first song, like I would put that joint in my ear and like kind of looking at my notes at the same time, and then I'd be like, and then I would pass. I remember passing the earphones over to the drummer like seconds before the song's getting ready to start, and like because they're talking, and he's like, okay, I'm like, yeah, this is the vibe, and so he's like, all right, cool. So and then it's like we go next song, boom, and I think S1 was just like after talking to him. Like I was doing that throughout the show. Like I'm listening while we're playing one song, I'm listening to the next song, like because we're just playing a loop. Most of them, a lot of them are loops and patterns, but some
Yeah.
of them were like some stuff going on. Nothing was really crazy though, which helped. But S1 was talking about like, bro, man, that was crazy, bro. I saw you up there doing that, and it really intrigued him. So we connected. A friend of mine named Deonis Cook, who's also from Dallas, really dope singer, music producer. He's sung with Janet Jackson, the Kanye West choir. Like he's done really
Mhm.
really dope.
What's his name?
Deonis Cook.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Deonis.
Okay.
Um, you should check him out. He's dope. He's got a few projects out too. But he connected me and he introduced me in S1 afterwards. And that was how that ended up going, man. I started working with like, man, like I want to say maybe like a month later,
Mhm.
and we connected in the studio, started making tracks together. We hit it really well, and then like maybe within a couple of years, he ended up signing me to his production team,
Mm.
and that was kind of how it happened, man. Long story short, with the Beyonce deal, he um he basically he got connected with Kanye because he produced the song Power.
Oh,
Um,
okay. All right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he produced the song Power, and so that's and that he got connected through Kanye through another underground producer, this guy named Rhymefest, and he just was in. It's just a crazy story how like kind of like
Yeah.
how doors open because of just building good relationships with people and being a good steward over what you have. And
Yeah.
so he connect. Yeah, long story short, he connected with Kanye through another guy who kind of put him on in a situation. Then that opened up doors for him, and then he was like, "Yo, I'm about to go to." I'm about to. They just reached out to me. These people, they want me to go work on a project, man. I want you to come with me. And I was like, "Yo, are you serious?" Like,
Yeah, of course, bro. Yeah.
absolutely. I'm doing nothing. So that's how that happened, man. And I ended up working with him over the past um, well, we are over the next several years, and we haven't necessarily worked together a lot in recent years. I moved to Tulsa
Yeah.
a few years ago, but that's my dude, man. He really has he's played a very big role in my approach as a music producer too. I would
Okay.
say,
Got you. So
yeah.
did you so just one more question about the best thing. So
Mhm.
was that you did you write that specifically for Beyonce, or was that just like, oh, this is just a little riff that I came up with, and then it was recorded, and then like it got to her and she's like, I want to use that.
So what happened was we were in New York. Like I
Mhm.
said, told me this on a Sunday, and I flew out the next day on the Monday. So we're in New York. We were there in the studio with her, and she was playing songs for us. She played, man, she had to play like 20 something songs for us. Cause artists, that's what they'll do, man. They'll have a ton of songs that are being sent to them,
Yeah.
different. Everybody does different things, but she had played at least, like I said, 15, 20 songs for us. And in that bunch was first she gave me an S1 this one song
Mhm.
that never she didn't end up releasing. It was actually really a dope song. And I wish it would have went on the project because it was actually dope. But we did this one joint, and then after she saw what we had done, she was like, "Yo, like, let me give him a few more." And one of the songs was Best Thing. So that song was written by Babyface and a few of his
Okay.
writing. And so originally the track was um it was like they had produced the original track, and it was, in my opinion, it was the beat and the sound of it was a little more dated in terms of the approach. But
Okay.
Babyface can write melodies like nobody's business. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
he ain't gonna never stop being relevant as a writer. If as long as he wants to do it, he can do it because he just writes great melodies.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. Is that she gave us her acapella, and
Yeah.
I didn't for none of them songs. Like she just gave us the acapellas to a couple of songs, and then we just again I didn't even remember what the music sounded like to whatever
Okay.
to that
So you
song.
just wrote, and so you wrote to her a cappella, and then that's how that
Yeah, we
came
wrote acapella. Yeah, yeah. Because like I said, the melody and the lyrics were already written,
about.
but
Okay.
me and created around it, and that was the first thing I did. I just started playing this piano, the little intro, and that was kind of how we started. That's what it turned into.
I got you. I dig it. Is what was your first tour situation? Was it did you tour with Jay-Z and Kanye? Is that true? Is
I
that
did not. Yeah,
did,
yeah,
did
no,
all right,
I
so you
did.
did, you didn't tour.
I did produce some music with my dude S1.
Okay, yeah.
Um, I was a part of the Watch the Throne project.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, there was a song on it that he produced that I was a part of. But no, I never toured with them.
Okay, so
Uh,
what was your first tour situation and how was that for you?
I think my first like for real touring situation, if I can remember correctly, I think my first real touring situation was with Snarky. And
Okay.
this was because I used to play with Snarky before they blew up, right?
Right.
Um, so, um, but I was already playing with the Funky Knuckles
Right.
at that. We had kind of started to form that, and so I would play with Snarky and help them out every now and then. They needed somebody to play in town, and I would do
Yeah.
stuff with them. There was a certain point where I want to say 2012, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
Um, I want to say 2012 was what that. I'm pretty sure that was the first real tour I did. I went out with them, and on this tour, actually, I if I can remember correctly, I think that it was both bands. I actually ended up playing with both. Like,
Oh wow. Yeah. You would
I was doing double duty for the first half, most of that run because um, I think that I think Sean or somebody wasn't available, like who would normally play.
yeah.
Um, sure Corey was on the run doing his thing, and Corey had just kind of gotten integrated into. I think they maybe had just started recording some stuff, but like I'm pretty sure that was the first tour for real that I did was with Snarky and the Funky Knuckles, and yeah, it was somewhere in that space, 2012,
Okay.
somewhere in somewhere
Yeah.
in there. Prior to that, I had done, I had traveled and I played some spot dates with people, but
Like with who? Because I was like, I don't know his like I know people that you've worked with, but I was like, I don't know who you've toured with. And like I wasn't sure if like the I wasn't sure if you were on the Watch the Throne tour or not. So that's why I asked. So who else played with? I know you I don't know the timeline. Like I know you've played with Tamala Man, but who else?
yeah. So I mean, as far as touring, I've been out with obviously like the Snarky. I mean, the Funky Knuckles. I started that band and love those
Oh
dudes.
wait, wait. Now I gotta go back. You started the Funky Knuckles.
So myself and the bass player Wes and
West,
Sid,
yeah.
we started as a trio, and we were just
Oh, yeah, okay.
started as a trio. It was actually Sid's idea. He was like, "Yo, man, let's go find a bar to play at." And so we started playing this little bar,
Yeah.
and we trio, and then we would make up names every week. Like one week we was the Funk Soldiers, and one week we were we just make up stuff. And then one day he was like Funky Knuckles. Sid was like Funky Knuckles, and we was like, "Yo, that kind of sticks."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so yeah, but that was it was the three of us as a trio. Then we added, we had first we had Mark Lettieri,
Whew.
was kind of playing with he's on the very first album. He's playing on that first album. And
Okay.
then the second half of it is where Phil Allen, who has played with the band for several years, I think he's kind of still involved. I want to say he may have went back home for a little bit to go spend some time with family. I think but I'm trying to remember. But right now, there's another guy playing. I haven't met him, but he's a killer player. But yeah, that the first half of that album was Mark Lettieri,
Okay.
and he couldn't make the commitment because he was already committed with Snarky.
Doing a lot.
So
Yeah.
it was like, that's how that band started, man. And then we
So
just sax and
gotcha.
guitar, trumpet, and it just built from there.
Because of course I had that on my notes to ask you about. But like
Uh,
if you had to describe the Funky Knuckles for people who haven't heard the Funky Knuckles, like how would you describe it?
I would describe the Funky Knuckles as just um, I would say, I would say, hmm, a um, jazz fusion funk.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say. Like
Yeah.
jazz funk. There's lots of elements of different things, but there's the songs are very compositional.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's a very there's a lot of room for improvisation, which is one of the things that I loved about playing with the Funky Knuckles was that it was just like we just go for it. It's very um it's very, for lack of better expression, like balls to the wall. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
hey, let's go. Like it was just like that kind of. It was that was how the band was and still is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, still. Shout out to the keyboard player that's been playing with them, Quentin Gray.
Yeah.
He's a really killing keyboard player from Dallas. He took over when I stopped playing. I played with the band for 7 years,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I stopped playing with them a few years ago. But yeah, man, I would say jazz fusion, funk, but like also, man, there's elements of like there's some elements where it'll tap into some R&B for a moment. There's some elements where it'll tap into some almost world music for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Inevitably, people compare Funky Knuckles to Snarky Puppy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll just put that out there. That is a real thing. That's just real life. People are going to do that. I would say, in my opinion, the strongest difference would be because, and I think some of that is because of the makeup of the band. Like you have trumpet, sax,
And y'all are on
guitar.
they're on the same label too. Honestly,
Yes,
like
and
y'all
on the label
partner yourselves together a lot. So it's kind of
absolutely. So, but I would say probably the biggest difference would be I think Snarky is a lot more. I think Snarky is a lot more compositional. You
Mhm.
know, Snarky's not as loose.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? I think there's a lot more structure to what Snarky does than there is. Not saying there's no structure to the Funky Knuckles, but I think there's a lot more structure. I think there's a little more freedom in terms of just like going for it.
Yeah.
with the Knuckles. That's that, and then even just kind of the influences of the bands. I mean, there's some similarities, but the approach is very, very, very different overall. And so I would say, yeah, I mean, it's a real thing. Yeah, sure, there's some similarities between the band, but I know that that's a thing that's been said before, but and that's okay. But um, yeah, that's what I would kind of say. Funky Knuckles is somewhere between Chick Corea Electric Band
Yeah.
and Weather Report and you know and Parliament.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's a good description. Yeah, I love watching y'all. It was y'all and I want to say Jonathan Scales was on the same tour. I want to say that's when I met y'all, or it might have been Jonathan. I don't know because I saw y'all and then like I saw Jonathan Scales and Ghost Note. It was like all in the same like time frame, so
yeah.
I forget which show was which. But like I
Uh-huh.
remember you came and that was a good time. And then the one of the other tours you play with PJ Morton. And so I want to know how that's like because PJ already plays keys.
Mhm.
So what was like your role and how was that being like the supportive ox player?
Yeah, so with PJ, it was cool, man. Like I said, PJ's an incredible guy, man. A lot of fun, good camp, man. A bunch of good people who just have fun. We clown and play music, man, and it was a lot of fun. But so in that the function of that situation, so PJ always would have he always has at least three background singers, and then usually three. Now I think at some point he may have only had two,
He only
depending on
had
the
two at one point.
yeah.
It was being Morris at one point, and then it was the I don't know the names, but the people who were there on your tour, the people who
Yeah, yeah. And I can remember those times before. Yeah, he had two, but there was a point where I don't know if you know the keyboard player Lynette Williams.
I know who.
Um,
Yes, yeah, I know who she is.
and so at one point she was playing with him, but so she would play, aux stuff, and she would sing some BGVs along with the other guys sometimes. So it had been a while since he had someone who could play. He was looking for someone who could play and sing. So he reached
Mm.
out to me on Instagram. We were from, we had kind of mutual friends, so we had never met in person, but we connected on social media, some years prior to that. But he reached out and was like, "Yo, hey man, I'm looking for somebody to, who can play and sing specifically for this next tour I'm going to do." So he was like, "I thought of you, man. Would love to, bring you out if you're interested." And that was how
Yeah.
that happened. And but the role, man, the function is really it's because sometimes he'll get up, and I think that allows him the freedom. But when you have the confidence to do that,
Mhm.
like when you have somebody behind you who you know is going to be able to hold it down and it's not going to fall apart if you get off of,
Yeah,
if he gets off of keys, it's not going to disappear.
yeah,
Then you can do that. And a lot of artists don't always have that. A lot of artists who I would say are like PJ, where he's very self-contained in terms of what he can do.
absolutely.
He writes all of his music. He produces all of his music. He can sing his face off. He can play his butt off. Like
Oh yeah,
he's you know what I'm saying? Like um he so with someone like him, he's a very particular type of individual and sound. And so yeah, it was very much so. I was playing aux and singing BGVs at the same time, so I was
yeah,
doing both. I think I brought a cool element to it with my vocoder, um,
absolutely.
which is a lot of fun. You know what I'm saying? So like he embraced that. I was like, man, let's like do some more stuff like that.
Yeah,
So that was a cool thing. But yeah, it was more so playing aux and singing BGVs at the same time. But then also whenever um there'd be some moments where he would be like, "Yo, I'm gonna have you take over on this part, like pick up roads." So
oh
I,
okay.
yeah, I'll take over on roads, or so he can kind of chill. Like there'd be songs like he has his version of Yearning
Of course,
that he,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know the part you're talking about because he gets up. I mean, like every time that he's been in Atlanta, I've kind of seen him. So yeah, I know what part you're talking about.
Yeah, there'd be and just different stuff. Like it just depends on the moment. He would, but mostly he would play piano. But that was kind of how that functioned. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, it was cool, especially like because I love hearing you on vocoder. I still actually when you filled in for Snarky, that was 2016. You did the Lingus solo on vocoder, and I'm
Oh,
almost positive I still have that. I haven't watched it in a minute, but I still have that video, and it was like after Prince died, and like you had quoted Purple. It was a thing. It was
Oh wow. Okay, man, you got to send me that.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that.
Okay.
I got you.
I do remember that though. Yeah, I do
So,
remember that.
what's the worst thing that's happened to you on a gig?
Worst.
Big L, or like just a bad gig, just like what, like it, just like you went home and it's like you went home with your head down because it was like that wasn't it.
Man,
Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode of the Major Keyz podcast with my guest, Caleb Shawn.